Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, July 20th, 2026, and today we are talking farmer health. That's right, stretching and exercise routines for farmers, gardening for the long haul, and we are addressing farmer loneliness as best we can. So let's do it. All right, happy Monday, everyone. I hope you all had really lovely weekends. Today is, of course, the last day that we are doing this all compilations all the time thing, but I hope you all are enjoying them anyway. These little blasts from the past episodes. It's nice on our end to collect some of these segments together so that it's easier when someone says, for instance, have you done anything on farmer well-being? Because, well, yes, we have, except those segments are here and here and here and here. So hopefully, if that was your question this week, this video will be helpful. And then back to regular old Farmer Jesse in my present form tomorrow. Until then, enjoy. All right, our third and final Patreon question of the day comes to us from Rob Hazel, who writes, quote, "Hello, Happy New Year, and thanks for all the great content. Your book, videos, and podcast have helped transform my grandfather-style compacted weed-filled patch of garden to a very diverse and productive family and community plot." Awesome. Good to hear. In this cold weather of late, though, I find myself being a log, sitting around catching up on Growers Daily episodes, among other sedentary endeavors. As payback, I can tell my body is getting soft from the inactivity, and I know it will reward me with some extra back and hip aches in March and April. You have mentioned that you have a stretching and exercise regimen to help keep you in shape for farming activity. Would you want to share some specifics of your routine that you find most effective, especially for your back and hip fitness? I need some motivation, Jesse. We need a Farmer Jesse exercise video, smiley face emoji, end quote. Okay, well, first off, this is a wonderful and important question, but the world definitely does not need a Farmer Jesse exercise video. My poor mortified children. Now, I should also say, in the name of full and very obvious disclosure, I am not a trained physical therapist or chiropractor or physical trainer or anything of the sort. I studied international business in college and did not even graduate with a degree in that, or actually with a degree in anything. So please look to the pros on specific guidance on how to do anything I discuss here today if you do in fact want to do these things. All right, so I love this topic because even farmers who maintain great, thoughtful ergonomics in their farming practices are going to run into some stiffness, soreness, some general uggness at some point. This is especially true in the winter when we tend to do a lot more sitting, as there is hardly any worse activity for your back than sitting, or so says my chiropractor. So part of my thoughts on this will just be to avoid sitting as much as you can and find a way to have a standing desk in the house of some sort and or lay down a lot and keep that lower back supported anytime you're sitting. I often roll a shirt and stuff it behind my back if I have to sit for a long time, like in a car. Now, I start there only because you can do all the best exercise in the world, but if you cap it off by 8 hours of just sitting down, you really haven't helped yourself, or at least you've set yourself up for back pain and or injury. Farmers also often think that the work is the exercise, and certainly to an extent that is true. I mean, the work of farming is very physical, it's very difficult. But it can also be very repetitive and not necessarily give you a full body workout. If you are doing a lot of hard labor, maybe a stretching routine makes more sense for you than like, some sort of physical exercise. But also a small amount of exercise can really boost your work stamina and strength, especially your core strength. So although, yes, you are getting a better workout in the fields, it can feel better and you can, work for longer with a little exercise and or stretching complement. Now, I have done a lot of different exercises over the years, and I tend to gravitate towards those that I can do at home without going out somewhere or without weights or machinery, because as you can imagine, I don't exactly have time to head off to a gym for an hour or so. So for a long time, I just did calisthenics, which uses your body weight for resistance as opposed to weights. So think push-ups, pull-ups, that sort of stuff. And I liked that. But I found that it's good to pick a routine, even online, and just follow their, that person's workouts so you don't hurt yourself, and so that you also work all the muscle groups instead of just like working the same muscle group over and over again. Like just doing 50 push-ups a day every day is not necessarily going to get you where you need to be. And it could also lead to some muscle damage. So you want to be careful with that sort of stuff. Hannah also bought me an exercise bike from Sunny, which has been a great and relatively affordable piece of machinery. If you're going to get any sort of machinery, I can hop on there in a pinch with watch a nerdy farming video or whatever, Usually it's like a soccer video, but let's pretend it's a farming video, and ride that for 20 minutes. Great for cardio, and I find cardio is great for work stamina. The last year, however, I've also been doing maybe 5 or so minutes of yoga stretches, like specifically targeted for my lower back and shoulders. So a little cat-cow, some downward dog, sphinx, and a few others. And then at the end of the year, I was like, wait, I like calisthenics. And I need to stretch, so why don't I just do yoga instead of just like dabbling in yoga? So I started just doing a straight up like 20 to 25 minute yoga routine that Hannah recommended on YouTube. The Yoga with Adrian is the main channel I use. Shouts to Benji. And it's been absolutely amazing for the way my back feels, but also my neck, my knees, my brain, all of it. Adrian has several very simple 30-day yoga journeys that are easy enough to get started. So I guess right now I recommend yoga, but like with any stretching exercise, just make sure you're doing them correctly, really honing in on those details. It's just as easy to hurt yourself as it is to help yourself. Last thing I'll say on this is that a lot of people work out for the way it makes them look or the way they want it to make them look. However, to me, the way that working out makes someone physically looks pales in measure to the way it makes you feel. There is no comparison. Long before you see much change physically when you exercise, you will feel things change mentally and in the energy that you have. And those effects will always dwarf the effects each workout will have on you physically. When you focus on the way an exercise makes you look, it can feel thankless and distort how much clearer you're thinking, how light you feel mentally, how healthy. So in short, do it for your body, your farm, your back, totally, but also just do it for your brain and for the feels. Anyway, let me know what you all do for exercise and working out, or what has been helpful or maybe not helpful. Maybe we need a farmer yoga channel, and I'm not going to host it. I don't really know how to do yoga. I just follow what Adrian tells me. But maybe there is someone out there who does already do that or can do that. So shout them out in the comments if you would.
Want to harvest seeds adapted to your farm, but you're thinking, look, I have a market farm to run. I'm way too busy weeding and picking tomatoes. I'm Dan Briesbois, and I'm here to tell you that you can grow seed on your farm without losing your mind. On the Seed Farmer podcast and in my book, The Seed Farmer, I share exactly how busy growers make seed crops work alongside a bustling farm business. Find The Seed Farmer wherever you get your books and podcasts. Go grow some seeds.
If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions now. Today's Patreon question comes from Patreon member Lee Kossab, who writes, quote, "Hi, Jesse. You've mentioned a couple times about not being able to farm from your knees forever and generally figure out ways to do less bending over. I'm 50 and just starting my market garden/farm, so I'm definitely thinking about this too, especially after years of restaurant work." I hear that. Do you think something like the little cart in this link would be useful? The garden is a retirement project for us, and while we would like to sell some items, extreme productivity is not necessary. A privilege, I know. Lee actually posts an example of a garden work seat from Beaver that I can link in the show notes. You can see it on YouTube, but I'll link that in the show notes. Anyway, Lee goes on. The wheels are 18-inch wide, and our paths are just that wide. I'm chuckling, imagining myself scooting along on this thing, but if it works, it works. With several laughing till you cry emojis. End quote. Okay, so great question, and let's expand on this idea a little bit because gardens are annoyingly low to the ground for most of us. And last I checked, it is physically impossible to get any younger, though, of course, yoga and exercise certainly help us to feel a little younger, as does playing with kids and embracing Bluey is one of the greatest shows of our generation. So I have talked a bit in the past about gardening for the long haul and basically setting your gardens/farms up in a way that you can still technically do them when you're less physically capable is always the goal, because not all of us have taken care of our bodies for our entire lives, and like Lee and myself for many years, certain professions like cooking can be brutal on your knees, your neck, your back, your livers. So what can gardeners do to ease some of that tension between our bodies and our gardens? There are some infrastructural things that come to mind and some just general body maintenance things as well. On the body maintenance side, stretching, exercising, yoga, maybe, whatever it is you prefer for mobility and strength will help make this job easier, even if it feels hard to get started. That's especially true as you get older, but it is just as true when you're younger. Get in the habit of just a little stretching and exercise every single workday, or at least a few times a week if you can. Also, learn to bend properly. A slight bend at the knees before bending over will make a huge difference than just having your knees locked while you bend over. Looking at that garden seat you sent, what I don't like about it is that it's for sitting. and ask any chiropractor and they will tell you that sitting is one of the worst things you can do for your back. I almost would prefer something I could lay on, belly down, like Superman or Superwoman style. Next, on the infrastructure side, try to get as many things off the ground as you can. Obviously, for the bulk of your gardens, that may be hard, but perhaps it means building some raised beds. Perhaps it is a focus on taller crops, tree crops, things that don't require you to get up and down off the ground as much or require as much bending. Invest in wheels, wheelbarrows, carts, dollies, etc. to help move stuff around. If you're running a business, start budgeting in the cost for helpers for tasks that you can no longer do. I've said this before, but I remember years ago hearing that phrase, to farm like you're 60 or 70. In other words, don't farm like you're always going to be a limber, indestructible 20-something. I mean, who knows? For some of us, we may be fine all the way until we're 80. But everything is going to be a lot easier as you get less mobile if you farm like you're less mobile from the very beginning. Oh, and the chiropractor. I love me some chiro work, and it really does make everything easier for me. Sometimes people roll their eyes when I talk about the chiropractor, but on multiple occasions, I have gone from unable to move, maybe even unable to really get off my couch, or unable to move my neck or my shoulders or whatever, to being able to do whatever I want. So don't knock it till you rock it. On a larger scale, maybe graduating from a BCS walk-behind tractor to a sitting tractor will be a good idea for some, at least for tasks like shoveling that the BCS cannot do.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast and would like to support it, you can do so over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to those Patreon member questions. Today's question is an important one from Patreon member Dreamland Farmstead, who writes, quote, I quit my full-time HR job in August to farm full-time, diversified veg and hens for eggs. This was our 7th season, but first time with a 25-member CSA and one farmer's market, planning expansion next year. Going from a desk job to farming full-time has been awesome. I'm so much happier, but the biggest challenge is that I'm lonely. In the field all day by myself, and I miss interacting with people. My husband pops out from his office occasionally to say hi. I talk to my sisters and friends on the phone. Listening to podcasts like this one is a huge help too, and I get out at night with the kids' activities, but I really do miss just being around people during the day. Any thoughts on how to feel less lonely while working solo all day? Thank you, and sorry for the book. Carlan. End quote. Okay, well, thank you, Carlan, and obviously no worries about the long questions. I like questions like that. I like the context and the story, so it's all good. And I also think this is a really important question that gets to the heart of why there is so much interest now in collaborative farming models. Farming is fun, it's satisfying work, it's delicious, and it's also often very lonely. I know that some of the hardest times I've had farming had nothing to do with the farm itself or how it was going. It was when in particular, one I remember is when we were still living off-grid, an hour from anything in southern Kentucky, and our firstborn was still very young, which limited Hannah's ability to work or to help me in the field. So there were many, many days at that period, whole weeks, in fact, where basically I was out in the field by myself for like 8 hours every single day. And at the time, because we didn't have a lot of access to electricity, I didn't have unlimited charge on my phone. So I was basically just out there with my thoughts, which are, as you have no doubt learned through this show, all over the place. When we moved closer to family and back on the grid and got employees and our kids became more interactive, a lot of that loneliness went away because I had more people around. And when I didn't, I had more electricity to charge my phone and listen to podcasts and music and all those things. But not all of that loneliness went away, not even close. There are simply times when I am by myself for very long stretches, and sometimes that's a welcomed experience, but it gets old. I definitely feel you, Carlan. I'm sure a lot of farmers do. In fact, part of the impetus for starting this show was to just hang out with you all in audio form every day, to just give you a consistent break from the loneliness. Part of the reason that we started the Collaborative Farming Podcast with host Jackson Roulette was to explore alternative models for people to provide more companionship and more support. Is the financial side of starting some sort of farm collaboration complicated and potentially messy? Yes, sure, absolutely. Is it worth it to not have to spend your time alone in a field though? Also probably yes. But on the more practical side, perhaps, maybe starting with a part-time employee or even some volunteers wouldn't hurt. Maybe you can find someone willing to do work trade, or maybe you have some extra space on your farm that another grower could utilize and start a separate business. That way, at least you have someone nearby to chat with all the I's dotted and T's crossed contractually, of course, so it doesn't become a stress. Or maybe you do allow someone else to buy into your business. Either way, farmer loneliness is definitely a thing. It's a thing I go through. It's a thing many of us do. Like any problem in farming, solving it requires a thoughtful plan. What are some ways you could bring people onto the farm that would be fair to them and provide you with some companionship? I don't know if there's an easy way to feel less lonely to address that part of the question, any more than we can feel less cold without putting clothes on. The loneliness is a product of the environment, of simply being alone all day. Interestingly, loneliness is not something I or really anyone else talks about when preparing someone to start a farm, though perhaps it should be, i.e. you've got a good business plan, but how, we should ask, are you going to manage the loneliness? Because it's real. And I know the word epidemic gets thrown around way too much, but there is already a well-studied and wholly depressing epidemic of loneliness fueled largely by social media that I have considered for a segment in the future because it bums me out tremendously. For myself, and it sounds like you have this too, Carlan, I've learned that the time I do have around people should be rich and fulfilling so that my time away from people, that is to say while farming, does not add to the inherent loneliness created by no longer communicating with people in my real life. I really worry about the long-term health effects of poor social relationships and loneliness on our future and that of our children, but that rant is for another time. Anyway, everyone's situation is different, and maybe it's helpful to know that you are not alone in the loneliness. Not at all. Thanks for the great question, Carlan, and keep us updated if you find a solution that works for you. I would love to hear what you learn. All right, I hope you enjoyed that little compilation episode. Don't forget, No Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3, so that means you can support your favorite daily show about ecological market gardening from a Kentucky farmer with a J name while also getting a tax break. How often does a deal like that come along, really? I mean, that's got to be almost never. You can find the deets in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That is always a super easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. Big thank you to Michelle. A big thank you to the No Till Growers Board of Directors. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music. Mike Hilbert for the production, help, and editing, and doing all these compilation episodes. He does all this work. And my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can enjoy for a moment. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at no-tillgrowers.com to support this work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, you sign up in the month of July. It's almost over. You got to hurry up for that. You get a shout on the show. But again, for reasons that will make sense tomorrow, no shout outs or story today. We will be back to our regular ranting schedule on Tuesday. Can't wait. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.